everyone, Zeddy here again today with a brand new video, and we finally have the nerfs officially announced. We had mention of what cards would be nerfed in a recent update by Ixar, but today Play Hearthstone has officially announced what cards are being nerfed, and yeah, they address the cards. The cards that are being nerfed are very broken, and definitely a lot of them needed to be addressed, but there are some real issues. But let's go over the cards that I feel were nerfed correctly, or at least, in a way that will help the game out. So we have Bad Luck Albatross, was a 3-mana 4/3 Death Rattle. Shuffle 2 Albatrosses in your opponent's deck. It is now a 4-mana 4/3. So this card is slower. It's, worse statted. It's a bit more of a downside to actually play this card. It's not like a good tempo play, so you're not going to just auto-include this to disrupt your opponent. I think it hurts the card a lot in Standard and in Wild especially. It'll slow it down. So, yeah, I think it's good. I'm glad they left the Death Rattle alone. It's still counterplay to Reno decks, but there's actually a downside in playing the card. So, I think it's a good nerf. It's kind of what I expected. I was like, either mana cost or, make it not a good tempo play, and it no longer is. Then we have Demon Hunter's 1-drop Battle Fiend, which was a 1-mana 2/2. After your hero attacks, gain 1 attack. Now it really is the card that it at least attempted to power creep. Now it's just legitimately Lowly Squire, as it'll be a 1-mana 1/2. 1/2, gain 1 attack after your hero attacks. This slows down the card considerably. It doesn't scale as ridiculously on 1. It's not a 3/2 right away. And yeah, I think this is a good nerf. This is kind of what I expected. It still infinitely scales. It can still get out of control, but you're not immediately dead to it as soon as it's unanswered for 1 turn. So that nerf, very good. Then we have Sacrificial Pact, 0-mana spell for Warlock. It would kill any demon, friendly, enemy, and that would include things like Lord Jaraxxus, all of that. Well, now it's only a friendly demon, so you can't just Zephyrus Sack Pack something. So this is actually quite the buff for Demon Hunter, by the way. For all the Zephyrus decks, for the Warlock decks, you can no longer just kill their Priestess of Fury or whatever it's called, or any giant demon. Like, you actually can't do that. So Demon Hunter gets nerfed, but it also gets buffed with this. And it can still be used in, like, Galakron Warlock to kill imps, so that's good, but some of these nerfs don't look enough for Demon Hunter, and this is a buff, so that's a little bit sketchy, but I think this one's okay. Although, yeah, a little bit terrifying. I won't lie. And then we have Frenzied Fellwing. Originally 4-mana 3/3 demon. It costs 1 less for each damage dealt to your opponent this turn. Well, now it's a 3/2. This doesn't really address the issue of the card almost at all. It's still the attack is still the same. It's still aggressive, but I guess it's slightly more vulnerable. It dies to, like, Backstab now. It dies to Holy Nova, Breath of Dreams, Consecration. But it doesn't really address the snowball issue of it, of you still cheat out a 3/2 very easily. It's still aggressively statted. I feel like they missed the mark on this one. I feel like they should have bumped it up a mana cost rather than hit the health. I don't know. I don't really like this one. It's still snowballs. It has that aggression that they're talking about that they wanted to eliminate. Like, the health is not that big a deal. So I'm not quite sure on this one. I feel like it's not quite enough, but we'll see. I could be definitely wrong on that. And then we have the first wild nerf I'll talk about is Blood Bloom is now 4 mana rather than 2. So the next spell you cast this turn costs health instead of mana. It's effectively completely kills Darkest Hour. It's way too slow now. So Darkest Hour Warlock is dead. And Mecha'thun, it slows it down considerably as well. And yeah, comboing this is going to be very difficult. So Mecha'thun Warlock is likely dead unless you do other things like Kel'Thas stuff or like Plot Twist with Thalmaster Dorian type of things. But when you have to do that, it gets a lot more complicated. So those decks take a big hit, which I think are really good, especially Darkest Hour. I know a lot of people really might like Mecha'thun Warlock, but I think it's quite toxic to just win the game without ever damaging your opponent by just killing off your own. Maybe it's not quite, interactive in any regard for your opponent. So Blood Bloom, this is basically the nerf I had pitched and hoped for, and I'm glad it's happening. So I think they really hit the mark on Blood Bloom. What did they not hit the mark with? What did they absolutely, completely botch, though, in my opinion? Let's start first with Kael'thas Sunstrider. Everybody in their right mind saw what was broken with Kael'thas. It's the chaining of infinite 0-mana spells. So how do they address the card? Oh, they upped it a mana cost. It's now a 7-mana 4/7. Each spell you cast each turn costs... each third spell you cast each turn costs 0. Instead of, it being 6. It slightly slow downs the Kael'thas decks. This is horseshit. This just doesn't do anything. It slightly slows it down, but, barely. Especially when you're playing a ramp deck with, Druid, or you're playing Demon Hunter where you combo. It just barely does anything. It'll alter the win percentages of these decks by, a couple. And I guess in the world of Blizzard, where they're min-maxing, I guess, but it feels so terrible to face this card. It's so broken when it goes off, and it's still gonna be busted, especially in Wild where you have the ramp and all that. I don't know why they're taking this risk. Just hit the reason why the card's busted. It's just very frustrating. I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like this is an unnecessary risk. The reason this card is batshit crazy is the way it chains spells, and bumping it by 1 mana is not enough, in my opinion. Maybe if you bumped it to 2, if it was 8 mana, I could see it, but for 1 more, you still can just, overgrowth on 4, you go to 6, you're at 7, you still can curve into this in Druid, and then your 0 mana spells are active, you still do the same shit. I just don't see this doing anything in the Druid deck, and maybe Demon Hunter slows it down a tad, but I feel they really missed the mark on this one. Speaking of missing the mark, Altruist the Outcast. The biggest issue with this card is that it would go face when you would clear the board. So what did they do to address it? They bumped it up a mana cost, but gave it more attack as well. Altruist now is a 4 mana 4/2 after you play the left or rightmost card in your hand, deal 1 damage to all enemies. And you still can get this for 1 mana off of Skull. For 4 mana, it's slightly a little less broken, but it's still completely broken at 4. I mean, it's one of the most powerful cards ever at 3. At 4, it's still busted, and they buff the attack as well. Why? Why do we need to buff the attack? The card is insane. It still clears the board. It still goes face for 1 billion while clearing the board. This effectively changes nothing, but except slowing it down a microscopic amount. And we're already buffing Demon Hunter in this patch by hitting Sack Pack. Yes, Battle Fiend is a good nerf, but this just isn't enough. It doesn't address the core issue with the card at all. Again, I hope I can be wrong on this, but I don't see it, and I don't see Demon Hunter basically falling off at all. Battle Fiend nerf is good. Gladebound Adept nerf is nothing. Altruist is completely nothing except for 1 mana. It's just terrifying. And I didn't mention it. Let's talk about Gladebound Adept. It's a 5 mana 7/4 originally, deal 4 attack. Now it's a 6/4. Still an insane amount of damage for 5 mana. Still really aggressively statted. It's still really pretty much the exact same card as before. Aggressively statted, deals damage. It's just, I don't really see, why are we nerfing this by 1 attack point? Again, that doesn't address the issue of the card. It's still insane tempo, it's still insane amount of damage that can go face, and it's still an aggressively statted minion you have to kill or you're going to die. This does nothing. This nerf on Gladebound Adept does nothing. 1 less attack. It's still insane. So again, I'm kind of confused why they would go through the effort on this, but again, hopefully I'm wrong. And lastly, the card that they botched the worst. The card that was the most important for Wild for them to not botch, that I had been cautiously optimistic they wouldn't botch, is Open the Waygate. Originally, it is 1 mana spell, quest, open, you cast 6 spells that didn't start in your deck, then you get Time Warp. I'm like, there's no way they're dumb enough to possibly think that the reward or sorry, that the restriction on getting the reward is the problem with the deck. I jokingly posted in Corbett's chat last night that, you know what, they'll just make it 7 spells thinking that's the issue. Because that would be ridiculously dumb. No, they made it 8. They made it 8. You have to cast 8 spells now. That's not a problem at all for Quest Mage. That's not the issue ever. That's never the issue. You're maybe slowing Quest Mage down a turn, and probably not that. Like, this Quest Mage is pretty much untouched. And now Darkest Hour Warlock is gone. One of the only counters to it. Quest Mage is going to be better than ever. Its hardest counter is gone. And Quest Mage is basically untouched. They're giving away 1,600 dust for nothing. This does nothing. The other ones, I could be wrong. Not wrong on this. Nobody's played more Quest Mage for more than me, outside of maybe Hijo lately. I know how this deck works. I know why it's broken. It has nothing to do with 6 to 8 spells. Especially, they made Evocation. Do you know how easy it is with an Evocation to cast 8 spells with just that card? It's crazy. So yeah, Wild is completely screwed in terms of Quest Mage. It just does nothing. Absolutely nothing. You might slow it down a turn, but when you're nerfing Darkest, I can't believe it. And even one of the other counters to it's Odd Demon Hunter. And Battle Fiend nerf is significant to that deck. Yeah, we're in for some really scary times. I don't know what the hell is going to happen. I don't know if I'm coming back to Wild, like, ever at this point. And there's also a buffed Paladin card, Libram of Justice, is now 5 mana. That doesn't address the core with that deck at all. It's still unplayable trash. You're not going to play a Libram Paladin. And yeah, so that's the nerfs. Some are good. Most are just pointless. Outright, like, tone deaf. And I still think Demon Hunter might be tier S in Standard. And Quest Mage is still the best deck, if not even better than before. So, like, great on nerfing, but if you're good at nerf cards, actually nerf why they're broken. Hopefully I'm terribly wrong on these, but man, I am terrified to see the implications of what's going to happen in Standard, and in Wild especially. But I guess the only way we're going to find out is to see what happens when they go live. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you do, please like and subscribe. Hopefully have a great day. And yeah, I think we're not going to have a problem staying salty, my friends, because they missed the mark. Holy crap, did they miss the mark.